Contrast paint's awesome, and I use them on almost all of the miniatures that I paint. In this video, I'm going to show you my 3 favourite ways of using contrast paints whilst painting up this Blood Angel Space Marine. If you like this video, then please do let me know. If you'd like to see more content from me, then please feel free to subscribe and also ring a bell while you're there. It'd be great to have you on board. With my Blood Angel primed, base coated and ready for highlighting, I always like to get the undersuit of my Space Marine tackled first. Mainly because this part is tucked away and I'm likely to ruin my hard work on the armour with some sloppy brushwork if I leave it until later. To make painting it easier, I base coat with Mechanica Standard Grey and then wash it with Black Templar, thinned with an equal amount of contrast medium. I find that the pigment in contrast paint settles into recesses in a much more satisfying way than a traditional wash, giving more distinct shading on ribbed areas like this. Plus, applying contrast paints over a painted surface gives you many more options and a greater range of colours than sticking to Wraithbone or Grey Seer alone. I would advise experimenting with the paints you have to see what you can come up with. On these pink horrors, I washed the pink flesh with 1 part of Volupus pink and 4 parts medium. This made the paint stain the surface even less and instead just gave me some nice extra shading in the recesses. I also used Wildwood and this 1:4 ratio on this aged gold trim of my Greater Possessed miniatures. Wildwood is such a strong and rich colour that it did much of the hard work for me, and I was able to get a passable result with just a few highlights. Next, I move on to recess shading the armour, to break up the panels and accentuate the brightness of the highlights I will do later. To do this, I mix Flesh Tearers Red with twice as much contrast medium, and paint it into the recesses as carefully as possible. I tend to apply a pretty generous amount, as much of it will evaporate and give us a nice little gradient for very little effort. Don't panic if you make any mistakes, it's easy to clear up any spill with a damp brush afterwards. In addition to shading the recesses, I also tend to add shadows in select places too, like this knee pad. You can easily apply a shadow by dragging a small amount of paint across the panel with your brush into the darkest area. The transition can then be smoothed out on the edges with another damp brush. Once the overall recess shade is complete, I add a drop of Wildwood to the mix and go over the model again, aiming for the deepest recesses only and darkening them further. If you don't have a contrast paint of the exact additional colour you need, you can always add a drop of dark ink. Inks work very well with contrast paints and are a great way of tweaking the colour. I now take a bit of time off camera to get my Blood Angel's red armour highlighted up. When it is done, I can't help but feel the highlights are a little stark and don't really fit with the main colour of the armour. To help unify them, I mix my Flesh Tearer Red with Blood Angel Red and then add a substantial amount of Lamia Medium to the mix and apply it as a glaze over all of the panels. Both of these contrast paints are very rich in pigment, so the ratio of paint to medium is probably about 1:5. Contrast paints vary quite wildly in how strong they are, so if you're looking to glaze in this way, I'd advise checking the transparency first, either on your nail or on a plain, non-absorbent surface. In addition to unifying colours in this way, you could also use a glaze like this to tint the colour of your paint job, adding warmth with some yellow, cooling with a blue, or even darkening with a black or dark brown. I used a yellow glaze on the chest of my Zote to set it apart from the scaled skin, and I feel it improved the overall effect greatly. So, with the colours brought together and the transition smooth too, I'm free to carry on working on this boy and get him ready for the table. But that's it for now. I hope you have found something useful here. Special thanks go to Juan Hidalgo's Heavy Contrast series. If it wasn't for these videos, I wouldn't have had the confidence to start experimenting and using contrast paints in this way. In fact, if you are interested in applying any of these techniques in your painting but don't know where to start, I would advise digging through his videos for some more inspiration. How do you feel about contrast paints? Do you have any other uses for them? If you do, please do let me know in a comment below. It's always good to hear from you. You can find me on most social media platforms under Rookie Brushes, but if you want to hang around for another video, that's awesome too. But thank you for watching, enjoy your hobby, and I'll see you next time. Take care, bye bye.